When I was in high school, 3 friends and I were busted for having a few coolers before a school dance. A dance for which I was one of the main organizers as a member of the leadership class. After a talking to in the principal's office, we were suspended for 3 days. Our parents were called in to come and collect us in front of the teacher chaperones and our fellow students. I still remember my mama's hand tightening around mine when one of the teachers, who had once taught her and was then teaching me, said, "Well, it looks like the apple didn't fall far from the tree." True story. We did our time. We met with the school counselor upon return to class, and we made our apologies to our teachers and our parents. But I wouldn't come to understand the impact of our actions until many years later. Over a visit with one of my cooler drinking friends at her family home last Christmas, her mother brought up the incident. We tried to shrug it off. We had a little laugh, what's the big deal? Look at how well we turned out. But the look on my friend's mom's face told us that there was still more that needed to be said. She proceeded to tell us how she and her husband, who had been a teacher at the school from which we were suspended, were impacted. She told us that she had been worried, embarrassed, and disappointed in us. And that stung, even 20 years later. Sure, we'd broken a school rule, a law too if you throw in the underage drinking piece. However, our actions had a much greater impact on the people in our lives and our relationships with them. Now imagine the impact of a far more serious incident or a crime, such as a theft, a break and enter, dangerous driving, even violence. In the little book of Restorative Justice, Howard Zare explains that a restorative approach to justice extends beyond what rule or law has been broken and who needs to be punished for that to ask a different set of questions. Who has been hurt? And what are their needs? And whose obligations are these to make things right? Through a restorative lens, Zare frames crime first and foremost as a violation of people and relationships. What matters most is impact, the harm, trauma, and breaches of security, safety, and trust. In her book, Security with Care, the late Dr. Liz Elliott makes a strong argument for why we should consider justice as a human problem. So what are the solutions to this human problem? I can't tell you, but I know who can. People who are impacted by crime can, because they are the experts in knowing what they need. And sometimes these needs are met through our criminal justice system, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes the very person who can help them meet their needs is the person who harmed them. So what if, instead of working to keep people who are impacted by crime and wrongdoing apart, we create opportunities for them to choose to come together in ways that are safe, supported, and intentional? There are over 400 restorative justice programs across Canada, a few dozen here in Alberta, with 2 right here in the Peace Country. Face-to-face meetings between people impacted by crime and those responsible for it are happening in our schools, communities, and alongside criminal justice proceedings. They're even happening in our federal correctional facilities. Through the Restorative Opportunities Program, Correctional Services Canada has been facilitating dialogues between people who are victims of serious and violent crimes and the people incarcerated for those crimes since 2004. Regardless of time, place, or circumstance, restorative justice is really about creating a safe space for people to voluntarily come together to address any of the multitude of needs they may have in the aftermath of crime or wrongdoing. These needs may be immediate, or they may arise months, years, even decades later. Needs may include things such as getting questions asked, questions such as, why me? To being heard, receiving restitution, regaining a sense of safety, forgiveness, healing, and closure. Restorative justice also acknowledges the needs that people who have caused harm have, which can include a genuine desire to make things right. The empowering nature of restorative justice is that it doesn't prescribe what needs or outcomes should be or how people should feel. What it offers is a supportive environment for people to come together to address these needs and to move forward in a way that upholds the dignity of all involved. In its very basics, restorative justice, in its essence, restorative justice is about people talking with and listening to each other and figuring out what to do and how to work through the difficult circumstance that has brought them all together. Sounds pretty simple, right? In theory, yeah. In practice, not so much. Restorative justice can be really hard heart work. It can be emotionally messy and downright uncomfortable. It can take time and be tiring. People may choose not to participate somewhere along the way. And there can be some really difficult and complex issues to navigate. And it's uncertain in the sense that it can't promise a particular outcome or how people are going to feel when they walk out of a room that often holds tension, tears, pain, and heartache. But it's also in this restorative room that the potential for growth and change beyond what may even be apparent at that time can be put into motion. Because restorative justice also makes room for accountability, for empathy, for hope, repair, even for connection. And it's through this hard heart work that the worthiness of it becomes known, that very personal needs can be met, and that amends can be made. Where sometimes we realize that we're not that much different than one another, and that the people who caused harm may have also experienced harm, and that they have more to offer than the harmful actions that they've committed. The late Norwegian criminologist and sociologist Nils Christie challenges us to consider what is relevant in matters of justice and who gets to decide. How do the decisions that our criminal justice system make for us impact outcomes and facilitate the needs of people and communities impacted by crime? And what roles do any of us have to play in matters of justice within our own communities? How many of you had ever asked yourself these questions before? Show of hands. Have you thought about this stuff? I sure hadn't, but it got me thinking. Thinking about how much we entrust the extent of our safety and security into the hands of third-party systems designed to deliver justice for us, because that's just what we do. And it's not so much that we do, rather that we risk removing the expectations of ourselves to be proactive in matters of justice if we don't see how we can play a role in it, and if we don't ask ourselves these kind of questions, if we don't pause to consider where and how do we fit. And don't get me wrong, these third-party institutions there to serve and protect us are valued and needed. More importantly, they're made up of people too, people who are members of our very own communities. Restorative justice isn't an either-or thing. It's a together thing, a we thing. And we all want to feel safe, to have less crime, and to have order. We want to hold people accountable, and we want healthier communities. The responsibility to achieve these things doesn't land entirely on our police, our criminal justice system, our community agencies, or our governments. We as community members have a responsibility to participate and contribute to create the kind of safe, healthy, and connected communities we desire. You and I, we have the skills, abilities, ideas, and resources to solve our own problems. And restorative justice can offer us a place where we can actively participate in matters of justice that impact us and our communities. Restorative justice can help us meet the goals that both our criminal justice system and our communities want to achieve. It can also help address the needs of people directly impacted by crime and the families, neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces that they go home to. These are the families that we have over for dinner, the neighborhoods in which we walk our dogs, the schools where which we drop off our children, and the workplaces where we work to achieve the means so that we can enjoy it all. When people come together to work through a shared difficult experience, it can foster a collective willingness to invest time, care, and energy towards the matters that impact them. We begin to see how a restorative approach to crime can not only be a valuable potential for us all, but we see how it can impact the everyday ways we engage in discussions, problem solve, plan, endure change and hardship, lift one another up, and live well together in community. We begin to prioritize, nurture, and repair relationships when we come to understand how we're all interconnected. With some support, intention, and some good heart work, we can use the means that I know we all have to get back to basics and take a leading role when things go wrong through restorative justice. We have what it takes to respond more effectively and meaningfully to crime and harm that affects the people in the communities that we call home. I know we can do that, Peace River, because all we need is right here. All we need is each other. Thank you.